Hello there, my name's Adam Fielding and welcome to another one of my music making sessions. So tonight I was thinking of maybe writing something a little more sort of mellow compared to what I was doing last week. So last week I ended up writing a prog house tune that ended up stretching to about 7.5 minutes. I am definitely not doing that today, because it's incredibly warm in here and I'm not sure if I have the patience to sit through listening to 7.5 minutes piece by piece over the course of the next couple of hours today. But I thought it'd be really interesting to dive back into the world of players, which I feel like I've neglected over the past couple of weeks. So I actually acquired a player relatively recently called Evolution. So I'm just going to fire that up so you can have a look at what it's all about. So that's just tied into an IDA device. So Evolution is kind of a generative melody generator kind of thing. So I'm just going to press run and it will play a little piano melody, which doesn't sound particularly exciting at the moment, but bear in mind this is an IDA piano. It's never going to sound particularly amazing on its own. So you can kind of mess around with all of the different variables in terms of kind of seed values and how it operates and how many steps it has and how many times it repeats before shifting to another pattern and the key and scale. It's very cool. So the first time I used it, I kind of made a similar mistake to what I've done here. I tied it to a really not particularly inspiring instrument, press play, and I was like, well, that's not super exciting. But then I came back and tried it with an actual decent instrument and I was like, oh, okay, now I actually understand this. And it's really interesting. So what I'm planning on doing with this today is finding a decent pattern with it, maybe creating a nice synth patch, probably using VK2. I feel like that's kind of become my go-to during these streams, and just kind of seeing where it goes from there. So I'm going to adjust the tempo to about 95 BPM just because I didn't fancy sticking to 100. I have no idea why. So so I'm going to use this Evolution, and I'll go a bit more into what it actually does when I'm putting it into use. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a VK2 after I explain what's going on here. So I've got my usual maximizer going on here. That's literally the only thing that's in the rack at the moment. So the output is going straight into the maximizer, straight into the hardware output, the audio output, and that's all it's doing. It's just applying a 3 dB gain. That's it, just for the purpose of this stream. So I might tweak that later and see how that goes. So for now, I'm going to create an instance of VK2 because that seems like a sensible thing to do. You may have noticed I've also had a bit more of a tidy of my instrument section again. I'm just trying to keep things to the bare minimum of what I'm actually using at the moment. In fact, I've just noticed a couple of things in there I might move in a bit. So I just want to create like a nice kind of key type patch. So that's not particularly exciting. So I tend to be leaning more towards kind of sort of squares and sort of harsher, more harmonically rich oscillators recently. So I'm thinking maybe I'll just go for a triangle. It's kind of nice and mellow, and I feel like that would be kind of a nice base for adding some drive and some saturation. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to add a bit of drive, and I think I might add a second oscillator. Let's have a sine. Let's continue with this theme. So I'm just going to bump that up 7 semitones, give it a nice, maybe keep that low. So not particularly exciting at the moment, but we can play with this. This is a good place to start. So I'm going to turn the filter frequency down just to kind of roll it off. Also, I'm going to set this to polyphonic mode because I intend to use this as a kind of a polyphonic patch. So just going to increase the release on both envelopes. So that's not hugely exciting, but again, we can play with this. So envelope 2 is currently controlling the amplitude, and envelope 1 is controlling the filter frequency. So I'm just going to adjust the sustain on the filter there, and I'm going to have that respond to velocity as well. Okay, so that's quite simple. So actually, I'm just going to move a couple of things around on my second screen. So let's just give that a bit of a bump, and maybe I'm just going to turn that down a bit because it's a bit harsh. I feel like once I start sticking this through some effects, we can get some interesting stuff going on. Right, so there's some nice kind of fuzz going on in the high end with the drives being used to kind of saturate what's going on there, and it's a really satisfying sound, I think. So I'm just going to add a bit of reverb and a bit of delay, and by a bit of delay I think I'm going to go with a lot of delay. Just a little reverb though, so... I might actually increase that sine oscillator a bit. I think this will start to come together once I add a bit of delay to it, so I hope it does. So I'm just going to enable ping pong and crank up the feedback. Right, okay, I think that's coming together. I want some really nice... just checking the chat now. How's your day? My day's great. Thank you very much. And also, yeah, it's hot. I'm very, very hot. So yeah, having some conversations about what versions of Reason people are using. Oh, Drabbit's joined in. Hello, Drabbit. And yeah, for anyone who's watching this, I've just realized I haven't actually said which version of Reason I'm using. I'm using Reason 11 Suite. So that doesn't include VK2, but I do love VK2, and I feel like I've just been using it everywhere recently. So that's cool. Right, I'm just going to adjust that there. And I feel like there's more I can do with this. I might add a bit of unison, actually. Let's just have two voices and spread those out a bit, detune them a bit. Right, okay. I think... okay, I think that's a good place to start. So, one thing I mentioned last week is I've got a plugin called Cassette, and I think that would work really well here. So... Blamsoft got to hook Adam up, brand evangelist. Yeah, I just really like VK2. I must admit I hadn't used it for quite a long time, so yeah, it was really cool to start using that a bit more in my stuff. So I'm using Waves Factory Cassette here, which is a VST, which I think will sound really good on this. Just to add a bit of, just a little bit of noise and a bit of grit. So I might stick that through twice. Right, I'm going to stop messing around with this, and I'm going to create an instance of evolution just to kind of get some melodic ideas going. So I'm going to turn the step count up to... I'm going to go with 64 to start. And I'm going to adjust the key to, I don't know, C sharp, minor pentatonic. That sounds fun. So I'm going to turn the repeats down to 0, so it's just going to repeat this entire thing over and over and over. If you turn it up to 1 or any other number, it will repeat this pattern, or whatever pattern happens to be playing, then move on to the next one. So you can create different patterns by just clicking the dice and it will just randomize it. You can also manually enter seed values here, so I could just type in add loves VK2, and that's a nice little pattern there. So I'm also going to adjust the note range here, so I'm going to adjust that to C1 to C5, and then maybe bring the low note up to, I don't know, like C2. And I'm just going to play it and see what happens. So I think I may have overdone it with the distortion. So I might just increase the flutter depth. As you know. Just basically I want this to be less stable. Buskin Bills asked, do you not have the rack extension cassette deck? I tried it and it didn't really do it for me, to be honest. That's the, I I can't remember who it's by, but I did try it out. I'm very picky about plugins like this. I've tried a few different cassette emulations and they just haven't really done it for me. So this was the first one I used that really clicked with me, and I absolutely loved it. It just has that kind of gritty, noisy sound, but without compromising the tonal quality of what's actually going into it, if that makes any sense. It has a nice bit of depth to it. So that really appealed to me. And yeah, it's really good. I highly recommend checking it out. They've also got a couple of other plugins, which, in fact, I'm just going to show one off. It's kind of gimmicky, but I love it all the same. So this is cassette transport. So I'm just going to play this pattern again. No, I need to press play. Kind of gimmicky, but I think it's kind of a neat thing, and it's a free plugin, so you can pick that up from the Waves Factory site, and it goes quite nicely with the cassette plugin. I'm not going to be using it, but it is kind of fun. It's a bit of fun. So I might turn down the drive just a bit here. So that's kind of neat. So I'm just gonna roll off the lows a bit, because I'm planning on filling that out at some point with some actual bass. So I'm just increasing the wobble on the echo just to kind of give a bit of a sort of drift with each tail. So I might start playing with these seed values. So I'm just going to roll the dice and see what pops out. I'm thinking I'd like to have something that starts at the beginning, a few notes in the lows, some at the highs, but mostly in the middle. So I'm just going to, I mean, that'll do. Drabbit says there's a native rack extension called Glitch from Ocean K that has tape stops like that Transport VST. It does. I actually have that. I think that's one that I've got disabled at the moment. Just not because I don't like it or anything, but just because I haven't really used it that much. So Buskin Bills asks, how many bars will Evolution run over? So it repeats this particular pattern based on how many repeats I've specified here. So if I put 1, it will play this pattern once, and then it will switch to another one. So I'll just do that now. But what you can also do is you can set it to 0 and it'll just play the same pattern over and over, and then you can manually control when it switches by just clicking on these buttons here, which is also automatable, which is probably how I'm going to use it. So I've basically got 4 patterns ready to go. I'd like the first one to sound good, and then I can use that kind of as my main pattern. You can also specify how it works by changing the mode here. So if I go to interfere XYZ and specify, I don't know, like 954 or something. You can also adjust the density of notes. So if I crank that up, you'll notice there's lots more notes playing compared to before. So I'll just play that now. So again, that's kind of an interesting thing that you can do with Evolution. That's, again, that you can automate that value. Unfortunately, it doesn't really have a lot in the way of CV. Well, it doesn't have any CV inputs, but you can stick it into a combinator and use the combinator to control the various parameters via CV inputs there. So what I'm probably going to do is just stick with the patterns that are there, adjust the density as it goes, automate the pattern changes, and that will be kind of the melodic section of that particular key patch more or less taken care of, which is really, really cool, because I quite like how that's going at the moment. So if I turn up the filter frequency, how does that sound? Oh, I've just realised that my, I don't think my overlay thing is working, because it should have just played a sound. I'm just going to try playing something myself here. Oh, well, that sucks. I'm sorry, guys. The sound effects aren't actually working in the chat today. I really should have tested this before I started the stream, so I'm afraid that's not working today. But I'll have to make a point of actually testing that next time. Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on there. Sorry about that. So no funny sounds today, which is a bit of a bummer. He says, breathing a sweet sigh of relief. I'm actually just going to roll off the lows on that reverb and save. I mean, that works as well. You're just going to have to yell. Yeah, just yell at me to save. That will do the job. So that's kind of a nice little key patch. I really like how that's going. So I'm just going to give that its own column because I feel like I keep bunching everything up. So I'm going to let's get going with some percussion. I'm going to fire up a redrum for reasons that I gave earlier on. And this time going to use a beat map. But first of all, I'm just going to find some samples. So I'm going to go into my old faithful Evolve free folder. And let's just find a nice kick in here. I mean, that could work. So I'm also going to fire up my typical drums insert section. So that's my Eve drums thing here. So that's probably going to sound way too loud at the moment. I just have that playing some kicks. I can. That'll do. Right. I mean, I'm not going to leave it like that, but let's have a snare in here as well. Yeah, okay. So if I go into the electronic snare folder and I reckon that could work. So I've just turned the length down so it's got less of a tail on it. And let's find a hat. That'll do. It's a nice short hat. So let's just create an instance of beat map. I can always change these drums if they don't really fit. So I'm going to go with lava, I think, this time. And just click on Spawn XY and see what happens. Let's just play it and see what happens. So I think that's a nice little basis for something to work around. I can always add some tops to that as well. I'm also going to add a little bit of percussion. So let's have just percussion. That might work. I might actually add a disperser to this. I think that would actually work quite nicely here with this particular kick. So let's just, how's that sound? Oh, that's way too much. I do love disperser. It is kind of the secret sauce for kicks, I feel. And kind of sound designy stuff. Yeah, beat map is really, really good. So what I'm going to be doing with the beat map here is I'm going to leave that as it is, but when I get to a point where I actually want to start arranging stuff, I'm going to record myself just kind of scrolling around the beat map itself, just so I can get some extra fills, which I can then use with the rest of the track, basically, just to add some variation. So I think using players to add variation is kind of the name of the game here, but I do also want to add some sequence parts. I'm not just going to do what I did about a month ago, where I just created a track from scratch using no sequencer notes. So I am Drabbit's asked, is disperser a transient shaper? It's not. It's a fascinating device. So I was talking to Buskin Bills about this a second ago, where basically the way, as I understand it, applies a very sort of varying delay times to very particular spectral bands. So you can specify where those bands occur by kind of sort of just selecting via the disperser. So if I just solo it, it doesn't actually affect the amplitude of what's going in. It just kind of smears things out, which is really fascinating because you can get a really punchy kick sound without affecting the rest of the mix, which I think is quite fascinating. So if I turn that up, you can really hear it kind of smearing the kick around 200 hertz. You turn it down, it's a nice effect. Turn it off. It's a very cool effect. I've described it a couple of times as kind of some secret sauce, and it really is. It's just great. I've also used it for sound design when you want kind of a nice sort of interesting smushy attack on like bass sounds and that kind of thing. It can work really, really well. So that's really nifty. So yeah, so I'm just going to leave that as kind of the bass drum section, not the bass section, but kind of the core drum section. And I think I'm going to add some bass, and this time I'm going to turn to Respire, because I haven't actually used that in a while, and I was very tempted to dip into Poly 6, but I feel like it's nice to be weaning myself off Poly 6 a little bit here. So that's handy. I'm in the bass section already. I have actually gone through the bass patches before, and there's one in particular that I really like. It has kind of a nice sort of smooth, wide but not too wide sound to it, and it's called, it begins with Beatitude. So if I just drop that in, that's quite loud, so just drop that down to about minus 10 dB as I am wont to do. So I'm just going to leave that as it is for now, and just I'm going to create a block and just start adding some bass notes. So I think slightly awkward with that weird note at the start, so I might actually try a different pattern. I'm just going to copy that in case I want to come back and just cycle through these. Actually, I did like the original one. So what I can do here is, I think there's a way of just kind of shifting the notes to the right. So is that possible? I can't remember how you do it. What I could do is just start it on pattern 2 and then automate it to go to pattern 1 immediately afterwards, and that would do the trick nicely, I think. So pattern select that, go to pattern, yeah, pattern 1. RTFM, oh man, it's been a while. So as you can see here, the pattern select works kind of in a similar way to blocks, basically. So you can start the patterns from different points based on where you actually place the automation, which is really interesting. So for some variation, I could throw in pattern 2 here. I mean, I won't, because I don't think that sounds as good. So at this point, I'm just kind of messing around with patterns, seeing what fits and what doesn't. So I think that's kind of a nice little pattern we've got going there. That's weird. Beatmap's doing the same thing I had a couple of weeks ago, where it was just kind of drifting off. So I'm definitely going to be sending these notes to the track at some point, just because that's slightly odd. I do feel like I want to grunge this up a bit more with cassette, actually. Ah, no, that is too much. Interesting. I think I'm overthinking this. Yeah, it's done it again. That's really weird how Beatmap sometimes does that. So, right. I'm going to go back to the sequencer and just leave that alone, and it's never too much. Just bill yourself as a lo-fi producer. Indeed, indeed. Lo-fi, chill hip-hop beats to relax and study to. That's definitely going to become my new thing. Maybe if I dial the... That's a nice balance, I think. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do what I've done a few times before and create a Spider audio merger and splitter for the redrum, and send the output of the merge section to where the stereo out from the redrum was going before, send the stereo out to that section, and take channel 1, which is the kick, put that in the splitter, split it back into the merger, so that should sound exactly the same now. Drabbits asks, does that cassette plugin add any compression, say like Scream's tape setting does? It does. You can actually toggle most of this stuff on and off, so I'm just going to leave this open because I feel like I keep opening it and closing it. So yeah, you can actually control, you can turn compression on and off, you can turn saturation on and off. So if I start just going through all that stuff, I mean, the saturation is kind of what I'm here for, so I'm just going to leave that on. The saturation sounds a bit weird without the frequency response on, so I'm going to try some different taped cassette types. That's kind of nice. It gives it kind of a darker feel, but I do feel like it compromises the highs. I think I had it okay before. I think I'm just going to leave it. Yeah, I don't know why Beatmap keeps doing that. That's very strange. So I'm gonna leave that for now, and I will come back to messing around with Beatmap. So I'm thinking it'd be nice to add like some kind of a pad to the top. So I'm gonna do what I've done a couple of times before now, and just create an instance of grain, and dive into the factory sound bank and grab something from there, which also means I can fulfill the chat command that didn't actually go through and play oh god, what's it called? Oh, is it even in this folder? I'm starting to doubt myself. Right, there we go. We got the bird. So I'm gonna just dive in here, and I'd quite like something that doesn't... That's way too much. That'll do. I reckon I could use that for something if I... Because it's just a single note. Don't have to worry about it fitting with any chords or anything. And I reckon if I slow that down a bit, add a bit of jitter, add a bit of pan spread. And change the loop type. Howdy. Right. So I've just set that to the analyze note. I might change that back in a second, actually, depending on whether it works or not. So I'm just going to roll off the lows and stick that through some reverb. Right. And by some reverb, I mean all of it. Okay, so if I just bump that up a couple of octaves. Buskin Bill says, have you got delay comp on? I do, it's turned on the bottom right. I've just realised for some reason this window isn't taking up the whole screen, so there we go. Yes, I've got delay compensation on. Interestingly, when I was working with video earlier in the week, I had delay compensation on, but nothing was actually introducing any latency, so it wasn't actually doing anything, which may have worked in my favour because I realised when I exported it, it might have actually shifted everything in terms of the actual sync points in the video. I don't know, I didn't actually test this, so I should try that at some point. But that's kind of neither here nor there really, because it's not an officially supported function. So I might just add a buttload of delay to that because that seems to be my ammo most of the time now. So I just want that kind of really in the highs. I think it just comes in a bit too suddenly, so I'm just going to adjust the envelope there. I reckon I could stretch that block out a bit as well, just vary some of these parts a bit. Yeah, I think if I just adjust some of these bass notes. No, I'm not hugely into that. So, no, right. So, Buskin Bills has pointed out, see, you're already hitting more DSP than the last set of streams, and I bet that's got more to do with Respire than much else. To be honest, I suspect it's probably got more to do with VK2 and the fact I'm using a polyphonic patch rather than a monophonic patch. If I switch that to mono, I can guarantee... Yeah, let's come down. Whereas you turn it up... It's not made, damn it. There goes my theory. Oh, there we go. It could be either, to be honest. I've heard Respire isn't particularly CPU efficient, so it could be either, but I feel like with that being a monophonic patch, and that being polyphonic, I love VK2, but it is a bit of a CPU hog when you start using polyphonic patches, which is why I haven't actually adjusted any of the modes on the front, which I have done before. So the algorithm is super saver on the filter. So if I turn that up, that would actually, let's see what happens. So it's gone up to 3 bars now. So I'm just going to leave that as it was. Yeah. So it can be a bit of a hog. interesting. So what's interesting is that bass note doesn't really sit with the key that I selected for VK2 via the evolution, but I think that works. So I'm gonna roll with it. Let me know what you think in the chat if you think that bass note sounds awful, but I think it works. If anything, I don't think that works. To the E again, because that definitely worked. There's a bit of trial and error going on here. Oddly, I feel like it's harder to tell if it's sitting right with me using headphones. So I think I'm overthinking this, so I might come back to that. So I feel like I need some kind of toppy element on the drums. So I'm going to leave that whole drum bit there and add a instance of, I'm going to use some reactor because I haven't used reactor in a while. In particular, one of the Blink Sonic ensembles. So I'm just going to go into devices, and this time I think I'm going to use Substance, which I don't think I've bust out before. So I'm going to open that up, and it's gigantic. So yeah, I haven't used this a whole lot during these streams just because it's kind of unwieldy to keep on the screen. So I'm just going to pop that over to the side for now and just click on keep open. I'm going to turn it down and just kind of adjust the levels before I start messing around with it. Right, okay. So basically, Substance it's a really neat kind of semi-generative drum machine. So there's a negative set tuning on the Spire patch. Ooh, I'll have a look there. Yes, there is. That's odd. I suspect it's because those two oscillators are detuned with each other, which is what kind of gives it that wide sound. So if I do tune those to center, it sounds very static. Yeah, it doesn't. I think that just kind of gives it that wide sound, but I'll come back to that. So I'm just going to fire up a different patch here. So like I was saying, Substance it's a drum machine for Reactor, and it's got a bunch of drum samples built into it. So it's really good for coming up with semi-generative, just kind of tops and basic ideas. So I'm just going to open up a pattern and mess around with this myself, see if I can get something a bit different coming out. So what sounds fun? Muzz. I think let's go with Muzz. So if I just play that. So I'm going to mute the melodic section here because I don't really want that. It's a bit much. And I'm just going to enable random mode on all these drum hits. Poskin Bills asks, is that the big brother to the other gadget you normally use? Yes, it's kind of similar but kind of different. They both serve very similar purposes and work in similar ways, but they have kind of their unique quirks. I do tend to lean more towards Roidos just because it's less unwieldy to use. I really like Substance, but it is a bit... You have to focus on using Substance while you're using it because there's a lot going on. But basically, I've just taken a preset and just messed around with some of the patches. So I've enabled random mode on the kick and the snare. So every time that's triggered, it'll play a different sample, which is neat. And you can adjust the range of the random samples, which I'm going to do here. So that should introduce some nice variation. So I'm just going to take the high pass filter off and bounce that in place, so I have just a nice 16 bar chunk of kind of glitchy drums that I can play around with, and that'll work as a nice extra top for the beat map, I think. So I do like using various semi-generative or random instruments together like this, just to kind of flesh each other out. It's really good. So I'm just going to turn the high pass filter on that again. I'm going to normalize that and turn it down. I love all of Blink Sonic stuff, by the way. I ended up picking up most of their Reactor ensembles in a bundle earlier this year, and it's easily paid for itself. It's fantastic for getting ideas going, especially like here. I've just dropped it in, made a couple of changes, and out this thing's popped. So I'm going to call this Substance Loop, and I should give all this stuff proper names really. So that can be keys and bass, and I'll call that washy pad because it is kind of a washy pad. There we go. Still not sold on that bass note. I think to soothe the pain of me not being sold on that bass note, I think I should just continue spamming percussion into this track until the problem either goes away or I forget about it. So I am going to go into the factory soundbank folder, and I want some shakers. I just want some shakers. So I'm going to go in here, go to shakers and pick some, and just, you know, like 5. Shaker 5, yeah. I'm a shaker connoisseur. I'm going to go with 5. So I'm not a shaker connoisseur. If I was a shaker connoisseur, I'd be doing it myself. I have got like one of those little shaker eggs kicking around somewhere, but I'm not about to start looking for it. Especially not when I could just scratch my face, which I'm probably not going to be doing this time, but that was kind of funny. So I've got that. I might dip into Loop Supply and see if there's anything else in there as well, just because I feel like I'm on a percussive roll at the moment. So let's go into electronic, see what's going on here. Yeah, I've just remembered why I don't tend to go in here that often, but I'm here now. I'm determined ish. I'm not determined at all. If nothing fits, I'm just not going to use it. How annoying. Let's go into Deep House. That'd be kind of funny. No. No. Not feeling that either. It'd be nice to have some like claps or something. just without lots of other stuff going on. Oh no, I'm here now. I'm gonna be here for a while. Oh, that could work. Something like that. Right. If I roll off the lows, I'll give that a go. Right, so I'm just going to copy that to the track. And I think I'm just going to stick in a Eve MP5 and just do the whole 20k attenuation thing just to kind of smooth it over a bit. Excellent. I think there's enough percussion going on there. I'm going to stop throwing stuff out there. That bass is not working for me. I just realized I got halfway through doing this and never finished it. So I've taken the kick sample and put it back in the spider merger and not actually done anything with it, which was the whole point of me doing that in the first place. So I'm going to take the kick and put that in the dynamics input for the bass. So it's the old sidechain trick. So I'm going to turn on the compressor on the bass channel, and that should kick in every time a kick drum plays. So that's kind of a nice place to start. Yeah, I'm still not sold on those bass notes. I think what I need to do, I think I'm having difficulty discerning it because the filter frequency's turned down, so I might just... Yeah, that works. It just didn't sound right to me because I couldn't hear most of it, so... Yeah, that sounds totally fine. It's just, again, because I'm wearing headphones, I couldn't really hear most of what's going on with the bass, so not so useful. Getting a bit of a Koan sound vibe coming through. Oh, cool. That's a nice comparison. Thank you. Actually pop that up a couple of... So there we go, we've got some nice ideas going, and I really like how that melody's going at the moment, but I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with it from here. So I've just realized I'm going to take this opportunity to post in the chat the Dropbox link, which contains all of my projects and exports and stuff. So I'm just going to pop that there if anyone wants to check that out. If you're watching this on YouTube, then check the information section below. That has a link to my Dropbox folder, which has all of my live stream projects in, which you can have a look at and dissect and all that good stuff. So yeah, just thought I'd drop that in before I forget again. think at some point I'm blatantly going to start adding some vocally bits to it. I've just realised actually I've got something quite nifty on my desk which I might have to bust out and see if that works in a minute. But we'll see. I think we've got a nice block going there. I'm gonna stop postponing the inevitable, and for now I'm gonna copy that particular beat map loop to the track. And actually, no, before I do that, I'm gonna turn reset step up to 128. And as the track's going, although it seems to have sorted itself out now. That is interesting. What happens if I crank the hats right up? I feel like it'd be nice to keep using beat map if it doesn't keep drifting in and out of sync. So that'll be interesting. So. Yeah, I'm going to stop messing around with this and just fire up the arrange section here, and let's start with like half the block, I reckon. In fact, not even half the block. Let's just have that little bit there. So I'm thinking just bring in the keys at the start, maybe something to go with it. Maybe that little grain can sort of come in at the start. Let's have that filter in, and we can go from there. Oh yeah, that's right, beat map is going to come in immediately. Whoops. So, oh yeah, I forgot you can't automate that. I mean, I could just mute everything that I don't want playing. Yeah, let's do that. Mute, 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 mute. Actually, I might have that come in with. No, I'm actually gonna shockingly draw in a note to start there, because I feel like I want that to play. I want it to start on a C sharp. In fact, just do the same again. Maybe add a bit of variation at the end of that section. I've had an interesting question. Are there any instruments or effects that you wish Reason had that it currently doesn't? Not really, to be honest. That is actually a really good question. And I think if you'd asked me that sort of maybe 5 years ago, I might have said something different. I think the one big thing that was missing in Reason for me for a long time was contact, because I used that a lot for getting ideas down quickly, and I've got a whole load of libraries that I kind of lean on quite heavily if I just want to get stuff going and sounding good. So that was the big thing that was missing for me. But apart from that, I feel like I've got enough. I have the opposite problem at the moment, where I have too much stuff, so I've had to just remove a bunch of instruments, and my effects section is kind of ridiculous. I wish I could categorize this stuff more efficiently. But yeah, I think in terms of synths and effects, I'm good. I'm good for synths and effects. I think they well and truly knocked it out of the park with when they introduced Europa and Grain in Reason 10, and yeah, it's great. So I can't think of anything else. But for me, I'm more interested in stuff like core improvements and extra players and different ways of working at this point, rather than another synth. I feel like I've got enough VAs at the moment to last me a lifetime. It's a bit silly, and VAs and wavetable synths are kind of that's well and truly sorted for me. I don't need any more, and it's a lesson that I don't seem to ever learn. So the more interesting stuff, the stuff I'm more interested in at the moment, is stuff that has a particular character that I can't get anywhere else, which is why I really like things like the wave station and that kind of thing, just because it has a unique flavor that nothing else really does in quite the same way. So I feel like there's a million and one VAs out there. Now I've kind of got enough at this point. And wavetable synths, like they all have their own unique characteristics, and I always find it kind of interesting when people compare Europa to Serum, because they're both completely different synths. Like, they're both wavetable synths, but it's like comparing the Subtractor to Spire. You know, they're both technically subtractive synths, but they both sound completely different. Well, actually, no, it's not. Sorry, Spire's not a subtractive synth. That's a wavetable synth, I believe. Well, actually, that's a good example. So, yeah, I think it's a wavetable synth. No, it's not. No. Sorry, I'm just being an idiot. So, yeah, I think it kind of is. I'm going to have to look into that, actually, because I'm pretty sure the oscillator section, you select... I don't know. It sounds good. I think Spire has wavetable functions, but I don't know. It's kind of a wavetable synth that behaves like a subtractive synth, but yeah, I don't think it is a subtractive synth. I'm pretty sure it's a wavetable synth. So I'm going to bring in the bass there. And just have that kind of drone for a bit. The best synth is the one that sounds good on your song. That is correct. That is absolutely correct. I don't want the drums to come in just yet, but I'm going to have like a little nasal riser just when that comes in. If a synth has a filter subtracting frequencies on it, it's a hybrid with subtractive. There we go. It's like comparing a Juno to a Moog, both subtractive but completely different. Exactly. I think there's this general misconception that all wavetable synths are the same, and comparing Europa to Serum is kind of silly, really, because they sound completely different. And 5 minutes with either synth would kind of tell you that, because they sound completely different. But people like to do it. People like to do that anyway. I think people just like comparing things to other things for the sake of it. And yeah, it's baffling. I don't know why that's the case so much with wavetable synths, but I think it's because Serum's such a big name now. People like to compare it to everything else. It's a fantastic synth, but yeah, it's... Anyway, I'm getting distracted from actually writing this thing. So yeah, I think now would be a nice time to bring in some drums. Let's just have the kick and snare to start with, I think. Let's have that prolonged note there. I always find it really interesting working with players as opposed to traditional sequencing, just because it feels more kind of like you're just making slight changes here and there based on how you want it to sound, more on feel than kind of exact melodic ideas, if that makes any sense. It's very interesting way of working. It's almost kind of like taking very broad strokes, and I quite like that. So I've just kind of put a little pattern 3 there and a little pattern 4 there. It's nice. something I didn't mention about Evolution actually is because it's entirely seed based, it should play the same thing when you're actually using the sequencer. Everything should play exactly as it does time and time again, unless you make any changes to how it operates or within the sequencer itself, which is really neat. So I don't feel a need to actually send anything to the track because I know it's going to sound the same time and time again. And I do kind of wish more players would do that, especially ones which have probability triggers or anything like that. If they kind of had a built-in seed that would basically make it play the same thing over and over again, I'd like a bit more consistency in players in that regard. So it's really good to see Evolution taking that route, and I think a lot of Electric Panda's stuff does the same thing. Oh, well, I was just messing around there, and I feel like I need to introduce some nice resonance sweeps now. I think I might get rid of most of those sweeps. I think I just need... Yeah, I don't want too much going on there. So what I might do actually is just cut some of these out. Again, broad strokes here. I think that's a bit too much of a sweep there. Don't want to start obsessing over filter sweeps. But I really like that, so I'm going to leave that as it is. That's kind of upsetting me how those have now joined, so I'm going to replace those. That's an interesting point. Giles has asked, I wonder if we'll start to hear the same melodies when folks use the same seeds. I mean, in terms of probability, it's incredibly unlikely because the seed values are, you're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's 10 characters of various alphanumeric values. The probability of having the exact same value twice and having all of the other settings remain the same. In fact, I haven't messed around with density, I might do that in a second. It's incredibly slim in the same key. But that's a really interesting point. And it would be interesting if an over-reliance on stuff like this resulted in a lot of music sounding kind of similar. That is an interesting point. But for today, I am not going to worry too much about it. Oh, that's interesting. That's just a step. That's not... I'm going to have to go old school reason on this and just... Oh, I can't. Oh, that's a shame. That's a really odd way of behaving. I assumed that would be an automation curve. Well, I might leave that alone. So, ooh, I have an idea for a player that would get around that issue. Ooh, well, colour me intrigued. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Giles's rack extensions generally. Although I haven't actually been using them that much in these streams, which is weird. I think yeah, the thing is, I'm a big fan of rack extensions that fulfill very particular purposes. And Giles' de-esser in particular is awesome. I use that all the time when I'm doing vocal recordings. I actually use Cellar Gain all the time when I'm working on my own stuff. I have no idea why I've not been using it during these streams. That's a really odd thing that I've just realised. Level is awesome. It's such, and the color EQ. I kind of go through phases of using it, and then thinking, why have I not been using this more? So yeah, they're all great rack extensions. And again, I really like the fact that they fulfill very particular purposes, but also have creative applications. So I've used the Selig de-esser on things like acoustic guitar recordings to remove some, like sometimes it works on fret noise, which I think is a really cool application for it. And then you can route the noise to other channels and stuff, and it's I love that kind of stuff. So yeah, check it out. I'm going to reduce the density at the start anyway. Very interesting that the density doesn't use automation curves, it's just step-based. Just gonna have it go up by 5s. Because, you know, music is math. Density is integer, so stepped. That does make sense. I just kind of wish it wasn't really. I wish it was a float value that snapped to an integer on there. That's nitpicking really. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start messing around with the density of the kick and snare. So, interestingly, these are integer values as well, but you can use an automation curve. So, I don't know the ins and outs of rack extension development, so I'm not entirely sure what the reasoning there was. Yeah, there's too many hats going on at the start, so let's bring those in gently. Squelchy. A bit too squelchy, I think. That's really interesting. I think we need some kind of transitional element before the bass comes in, and I've got just the thing. So here we go. Right. Let's get the sniff. Let's stretch that out. Fade that in. Normalize it, and let's whack that through a whole load of reverb. Crank that up, turn the time up, turn low cut up, and yep, the nasal riser. The nasal riser is back. It's only a matter of time really, so let's roll off the lows massively there, turn that down because that's going to be super loud, and here we go. I don't think I need it to be that long for that particular section, but I'm going to copy that because I'm going to blatantly use that again at some point. Actually, let's use the stretch. There we go. Excellent. Let's notch that a little bit as well. So it's just a nice little transitional element before the bass comes in. I think it's time for another beard scratch as well. I may bring that in later. I am tempted. So I'm going to automate the filter frequency as well, because I feel like a little bit of a rise there would be nice on the melody. I say a little bit and introduce way too much. How many subs to get you to make a fart sound with your armpit and sample it? I mean, I don't need subs for that. No, I'm not doing that. Maybe in the future. But yeah, I mean, it's warm enough. But no, I'm not doing that. I might have that kind of high pass filter in, and also add some reverb to it. Just to kind of add some extra elements. So yeah, there we go. I think that's a bit too much. So right, I think I might actually bring in the second half of this block, because I've still got 3/4 of the block I haven't actually touched yet. Oh, I just realised I've muted that. I still want that extra percussion to be muted, so let's just use that. I'm just remembering what's going on here, so let's have some extra variations here, just dropping in pattern 2 in a couple of places. Oops, don't know what's going on there. Right. That's weird, my control key is sticking. How about my keyboard doesn't do that? Right. Let's put that back. There we go, right. I do still want those extra low notes to come in periodically. I feel like I need an extra element in this section here, just because it's getting a bit... I'm relying a bit too much on what I've already got in that first block without really adding anything to it besides extra percussion. I mean, I've got these extra 2 percussive lanes which I haven't touched here, but I think I need something else. So yeah, have a think about that. Definitely need some more resonance automation, which I'm just going to shamelessly grab from earlier in the track. Maybe heavily filtered gnarly bass noises. That's a really good idea. In this section, yeah, I think I'll add that. So yeah, that's a good idea. Time to bust out Europa and start messing around with that again, I think. So this whole bass column's looking a bit empty. It's not actually going to be even remotely bassy, but it's going to be in the bass section. So let's open up one of the presets. I'm not just going to use Destructor Drone again, because I feel like that's kind of it's a bit played out at this point. But Apocalypse sounds fun. Just realised how strange a thing to say that was. Apocalypse sounds fun. Nasal riser. There we go. Let's turn that down. Analog grit. I don't just want to rely on well, that might work. So it might work, but I do want to change a few things. For a start, I don't want that unison count to be turned up quite so much. I suspect that's going on somewhere else. Well, no, it's not. It just sounds like there's something kind of smushing, something noisy, which I think would be quite good. So... Ooh. I really want it in the highs, so... Right, okay. I think this might be an instance where I roll off the lows in the rack, just because I feel like I'm going to be wanting to process this quite a bit. So I'm going to use the channel EQ section and just... Not sold on the reverb there, so I might add it myself, and I also don't want any release there. So I'm just going to mess around with the envelope here and see if I can get something to pop out. And loop it. Not sold on that. Maybe if I just keep adding things to it, I'll sort it out, right. Sorry, I've just checked the chat. I wonder if Access are enjoying a boost in sales of a very particular synthesizer. Oh, yes. Adam's tip of the day. Keep piling stuff on it until it sounds good. But that's how I do all of my stuff. That is essentially my MO. Let's have that controlling the low-pass filter, I think. Oh, right. Yeah, that was a really stupid thing I just did. Let's try a different filter type. I think I'm just not really feeling this patch at the moment. Right. Okay, I think if I start messing around with this, let's add touch of reverb and lots of delay. Hopefully that will end up with what I've got going in my head. let's just automate that high pass filter. May have overdone it with the phaser. I think that just sounds a bit ridiculous. So I'm just going to slow it down. I'm actually going to try something I haven't tried in a while, and that is using Xfer's OTT. So this is a really interesting device, and I don't think that's really worked. If I stick it before the filter. I'm not sold on that. Actually. Right. Let's stick it after that filter. I should probably just loop that. I think the thing is, it'd be really good if I stuck it after the reverb. Yeah. I'm gonna try a different patch. This is not doing it for me, so I'm actually I think I'm gonna replace this with a instance of Respire, because I think that could do something interesting. So wherever Respire is, and let's just dip into the bass section and find something that hopefully sounds obnoxiously loud and see how it goes. Right. Well, that's not what I was expecting. OTT is like a really great beer. Good with everything, but too much of it and you'll get lazy and fat. That is amazing. I love that. That is such a good analogy. Yeah, that's not a great sound. Ooh, drill bass. That sounds obnoxious. Let's do that. Maybe not. That's kind of ridiculous, right? I think if I use that high pass filter a bit more. What am I doing? Right. That's kind of working. Right. I can't get something I'm happy with. Hoover growl, I bet that's going to sound ridiculous. So we seem to have descended into the watch me go through a bunch of presets and find one that fits, which isn't really a lot of fun to watch, I don't think. That's weird. I guess there's really not a lot going on in the highs there. Let's try that. I'm going to leave that for now. I'm just going to play what I've got so far, so I feel like I'm losing track of what I'm actually doing here. Just realised I haven't actually added any drum fills or anything, so I'm going to do that. A little nasal riser there, I think. Okay, that actually kind of works. I'm going to leave that. Call that crackling synth. Oh, I bet that would sound really good with a disperser on it, actually. So let's try that. It's something I hadn't really thought about. So I think it needs a bit more. Yeah, that gives a nice kind of attack there, I think. I think the problem is I have that high pass filter cranked up way too high on that initial attack. Maybe not quite that much, but let's increase the pinch. Oh, I like that after the reverb, that works. Yeah, I'm not feeling that disperser anymore. It just sounds a bit too poppy for me. I feel like we need a smooth high pad or tone or something floating over the mix. I've got an idea for that. I'm gonna leave that alone. I kind of like that sort of little crackling. He says, thinking about something else he could add. Right. No, I'm gonna leave that alone for now. Yes, that's enough patch surfing for me for now. So, yeah, those beat map fills turned out well. They did! I lucked out in that regard. So I'm going to add some extra fills to the end of this bit here. Maybe try something a bit different. Yeah, there we go. Just nice little bit of variation. Right. I was sort of thinking maybe this is a bit too obvious, but actually the nasal rise can have its own section. It's a special thing. That can be the effects section. So as obvious as this idea is, I'm totally going to add some vocals because that's kind of my cheat technique at this point. So I'm in Reason. Excellent. So let's add a bit of reverb. A lot of reverb. And I'm just going to go for it. There we go, right. Right, now I should probably turn that down because it's just a bit too much. Let's start messing around with the performance, I think. So you may have noticed I'm not using Neptune this week. I just figured maybe try something different for a change. I think that works. I'm actually wondering if maybe shifting it up would work better. It's just a pop on that, on this that's not really doing it for me, so let's mute the drums. Damn it, I was really hoping that would work. Oh, it did. Brill. Right. a bit too much wobble, I think. So call it Vox 1. So I'm finally adding the second half of that block. And I want that same fill that I had to go in there. And I think it's time to add some extra vocals over that. So just going to duplicate that, call that Vox 2, and record some extra vocals over that. I'm thinking of maybe adding some harmonies. Let's do that now, actually. Let's duplicate that, call that Vox 2, and this can be Vox 3. Nice and imaginative. So let's format shift that up a bit more. Okay, well, that's interesting. I might mess with some of these notes just because they seem a bit wobbly, but so, yeah, a good grain delay might sound good on that distorted wave track. That's an interesting idea. Let's have a little look. I could use Ubic G, which I haven't actually used in a while, and that actually has kind of a neat granular echo preset, which that's not really what I had in mind. In fact, what I'm just going to do is I'm going to create an aux send based on... That's the wrong folder. Patches. So I'm going to go into my effects folder and use Old Faithful neutron fifths as an aux send. So this is basically an instance of neutron particle emitter which is going through a DR1 because everything needs to go through a DR1. But this is basically a nice sort of granular sort of delay kind of effect, and I've used it. I've set the pitch up 7 semitones, so it's a perfect fifth. And I'm just going to have this going through that and see what happens, really. I think the problem is it's just way too quiet. Ah, if I turn it up an octave, that's kind of neat. So it's just adding like that extra bit of smear at the end. Actually, I'm going to stick with the Ubic G because I think that could have worked really nicely if I'd actually just messed around with it a bit. So I'm just going to stick with default patch. That's sort of what I had in mind. That's kind of ridiculous. I might have that go through a bit of reverb just to kind of smear it a bit like I did with the neutron fifths and just see what happens with that. So this will be interesting. So I'm going to add some extra vocals over the top, so... Right, let's try that out. Well, that's all over the place. That's totally how it sounded before. You know, it didn't really need any pitch correction. I just thought I should do it just for the sake of it, you know? And if you don't believe that, yeah, it's hard. It's hard doing it live. So... Right, I think... Let's format the shit up. Just... I'm going to do the same thing I did last time and just duplicate that track and make some kind of harmony out of that. going to leave that as it is for now. I'm going to have the shaker come in during the second part of that block just because I don't really need it to come in before. But I do need that nasal riser. So that'll be a nice place to go somewhere. I think if I repeat that block. I think if we just have the melody kind of drop for a bit, maybe use a delay wash, and I think that'd be nice because I've already got the delay ready. So let's just crank up the feedback before that section. Just have a nice diffuse delay wash there. And then maybe have... Oh. Right, I think I can make that delay wash work a bit better, so... Yeah, I think if I just have that the filter kind of sweep on the delay, I think that would work well. Just going to play us from the beginning and see what we've got. just realised I'm not automating that as much as I should. Let's have some more resonant sweeps as well. I think I want the bass to drop just before that point. Not drop as in start changing presets every 16th note, but just actually stop. So I'm just going to use a line mixer to do that here. I tend to prefer not to automate the mute and solo buttons on the SSL mixer if I can avoid it, just because it makes it easier to bounce stems when I'm done typically. So although this seems kind of like a weird way to do it, I just find it neater when it comes to organizing everything later, which, like I said, it's a weird way to work, but it works for me. I might actually have that filter in now that I've got something else going on. I feel like it's less important that I bring that in immediately. I'm not sure about that. Yes, thanks for the save reminder. I'd completely forgotten. It'd been ages since I'd saved. Have those vocal bits really run out. Actually, no, that's not going to work. Maybe in the next section. I sort of feel like this is kind of interesting. So this is like generative trip hop. Really loving it so far. It's awesome. Yeah, it's kind of gone in an interesting direction. I feel like it's kind of naturally coming to a close a little earlier than I was expecting. So I might follow that thought and maybe rearrange what I've got. Because I feel like I could do with something maybe before everything finishes. Oh, there goes the beat map. Interesting. Interesting how it just does that sometimes. Let's have another little riser coming at the end there. Yeah, I think I could do with another instance of that entire block and maybe add something there. And then I think it will, if I kind of have everything round off here, just start fading out, I think that would work. Just drop the bass there. Let's start having the shaker and everything else just kind of drop out. See, I think if I keep it sort of simple for this ending, that'll work nicely. And I've got room to add something, and I've got an idea for what I want to add earlier on. So yeah, that'll be interesting. Didn't mean to do that. No surprises, no prize for guessing what I'm going to be doing here. So I'm going to add a DR1 here and just have that snare come in at the end. I might have done this last week actually. Am I just repeating myself endlessly? I've got a funny feeling I might have done this, but never mind. So at this point I want everything to just completely drop out. So that's off, off, off. I definitely want to mute everything besides the snare. So that's mute, mute. Right, okay. I want that to be longer. Oh yeah. So I'll just have that run out there. And just turn that down as it runs its course. Oops. Maybe I shouldn't have the snare mute quite that early. There we go. So I do want to do something with that chunk there. I want to add something after that. Have that whole block run through again. Add something to it. Cheeky snare at the end. Pesky. Right. So I'm going to play what I've got and have a ponder about what to add. I've got an idea, but we'll see if I can actually do it. I might do. Let's prepare for this. Right, I know what I'm going to add here. So, I'm going to move that fill over here to maybe just add a little fill there. Let's just bring that down. Keep that there, right. Yeah, just a little bit of variation. So, just had a question, random question, but what do you think? Have you got or used the Delta MIDI computer? I haven't. I don't really know what it does, to be honest. So I can't really comment either way. Right, so this is a bit of a weird shot I'm going to try here. So I've just realised I've got an Ebow on my desk. And it's been a long time since I've actually used this in one of my streams. I think I might have only used it in my first one. So I think it might be interesting to bring that out. So I'm going to use my Ebow with my guitar and try that out. So very carefully turn this on and see if I can find what I need to do this. So let's give this a go, and I'll try not to become a mess of cables. Whoop. Right, this will be interesting. Right, let's plug this in, turn that on, and here's my Ebow, and I'll just give this a go. Oh man, I'm warm. So I'm going to create a audio track, and I'm going to put this in the same place as my vocal stuff because it seemed, I don't know, just feels like the right place to put it. So that's on channel 2, and I'm going to just load up a preset I've got kicking around. So if I go into my patches folder, go into guitar, and I want something clean because wait, I always thought that shelf was about 10 feet away. No, I wish. This room is incredibly tiny. Yeah, so that's why it's incredibly warm in here. So I am going to just go with a nice and clean patch because I don't want it to be, don't want to overdrive it. It's an Ebow. It's going to make a lot of noise as it is. So I'm going to add a healthy amount of reverb because it warrants it really, and quite a bit of echo as well. So let's have some delay, crank that up. Might leave that saturator on just for now, see how that sounds. I'm overthinking this, so right. I regret not hitting record before I started doing that. So yeah, I think... I'm torn now. Do I just stick with that and... Yeah, I'm really tempted to stick with that and not go with the Ebow. So for reference, this is kind of what I was thinking of doing with the Ebow. I hope this just doesn't deafen you. Again, I slightly regret not hitting record there because that would have worked. I think I might do both, but I might put the Ebow in the background because it's a bit much. But yeah, I'd like to try both. I think at this point. So I'm just going to hit record and see what happens. And I've just realised I haven't actually tuned this. So, ooh, no. I mean, I seem to be only using one string anyway, so I'm going to use the Ebow and... Okay, so I'm just going to hit record and see what pops out. In fact, I might bring... Yeah, I think I might bring the Ebow in second. Oh, I don't know, let's just go for it. Try this again because I'm not super happy with that take, so I'm just going to get rid of that for now and record it again. Cool, right. Yeah, you should always hit record when noodling. That's true, that's true. I normally do. I've gone pretty good with just recording everything I do nowadays, but today I just didn't. So there we go. I might actually have a bit more delay on that. So I better not make a mistake, otherwise that delay is going to be playing endlessly. As a reminder of my mistakes. So, here we go. happen. Also, I forgot to disable that loop. So let's try this again. Third time's a charm. Fourth time's a charm. I do not normally struggle this much to record Ebow parts. Right, okay, I need to fix one of my mistakes. That's before that, right. Oops. So let's just get rid of that. Pretend that never happened. And I'm just going to do some very cheeky editing here. Cheating editing. Right, so if I just take the correct bits and stretch those out. There we go. Excellent, got the whole thing in one take, yes. I totally didn't cheat. So, I'm going to duplicate that, and I am going to use... I'm going to put the saturator back on it because I'm using that as a bit of a stereo widener just on that these particular elements. I kind of like how that works on guitar parts, and because I'm going to have two playing, I think if I can balance them out together, that'll work nicely. But Yeah, it's just too much reverb on that. It's just completely smushed out. Okay, let's just try that. Was all going so well. Let's just quantize that and cheat. I'm going to leave that in as a record. No, I'm not. So... find it helps if you have snap turned on when you're moving stuff around. I'm just going to put this down for now because I'm leaning forward and I feel like I should just be focusing on what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to put that back for now, not record any more of that. So yes, I could be crossfading this stuff. It would make my life a lot easier. Yeah, I think if I just stick with that. I think as well, I don't really need all that stuff coming in there. Let's put that in the right place, right? Yeah, so I'm going to cheat here and just have the reverb extend during that section so we get kind of a longer... a longer note there. Right, I'm going to do something cheeky here. And then I'm just going to have that fade out nicely, so I'm just going to copy that a few times. Man, I wish that fade wasn't in the way. And I wish that feedback loop wasn't happening right now. Oh, it's a sound I'm used to. Right, so if we just move this back a bit. Oops. Right, so I think that works. So I might tidy up some of the edits on this guitar part afterwards. So that melody part at the end kind of comes in quite suddenly, so I'm just going to have that filter in a little bit first. Actually, I might just have the bass fade out properly because it's a bit sudden when it just drops. So, handily, I already have this nifty little line mixer. You may have noticed I just added an instance of Selig gain to the Ebow because I wanted that to drop by about 1.5 dB just when the guitar plucks come in, just to give them a bit of space, because they are both occupying very similar parts of the spectrum. So I figured it would make sense to do that. Give it a bit more space. Yeah, Buskin Bill says, also notice it has actual values, not just some numbers. That's actually kind of why I used it in this instance, because I always feel like 1.5 dB is a good noticeable point at which to kind of dip things. Like sometimes you want something more, but less noticeable when you're listening to it. But in this instance, I wanted something noticeable, so it just kind of dips and gives everything a bit more room. And 1.5 dB is kind of a nice sort of general go-to that I tend to do when I just want to make some changes that don't affect the mix too much, but just kind of give things a bit of space, if that makes any sense. So that's why I used it here. Yes, that's what I want. Oh, whoops. I'm sure there was something. Sure there was something that was coming in that I wasn't hugely into. Some interesting questions about crossfading coming up in the chat. So basically, crossfading audio clips has always been in Record and Reason since version 6, but you'd have to go into Comp Edit to actually do it from there. You couldn't actually do it from the sequencer. In Reason 11, they added crossfading from the sequencer, so you can just highlight 2 clips and select quantize, and that should do it for you there. So it just kind of cuts out an extra step. So if you have 2 elements overlapping each other, you can just highlight them and press X. And that does it, which is super useful. That's pretty much exactly how it works and everything else. And it's nice to finally see that in Reason. Except I'm so used to doing it now via the Comp Edit that I keep forgetting it's there. So it was nice that Giles pointed out it was actually there, because I had completely forgotten it was there. But yeah, it has been there for a long time. I just forgot that it was there in the sequencer view, and it does make things a lot easier. So I'm gonna stop that there and start thinking of some track titles, because I haven't actually got any at the moment. So I'm just gonna play it from the start, and we'll see how it goes. So here we go. This is the track I've been working on, which I still don't have a name for. Here we go. I'm happy with that. I'm gonna leave that. So I was thinking of like a couple of track ideas. Have some interesting ones. Night fishing, sultry substance. I'm thinking something kind of atmospheric and sort of. I was thinking something kind of related to memory, perhaps like some sort of isolated memory or something. So I was thinking like forgotten signal or something might be an interesting idea. I've just been looking at, I've got a massive list of track titles which I keep. Every time I think of something, I add to my list of track titles which I dip into from time to time, and sometimes I like to dip into those and combine them with other ideas. So forgotten summer, I hope not, because we're just getting into summer, but I like the idea of forgotten signal. I like the idea of sort of we all forgot about the crossfade. Or forgotten fade, or something related to fading would be good. So, forgotten remembrance. I feel like that's more of a sort of prog rock title, which I like. Oh, memories evolve. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I'm sticking with that. Sorry, memories evolve. I like it. I'm gonna hang on to forgotten remembrance for if I decide to have a crack at some prog rock during these sessions. Although given my performance with the guitar today, I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. So I suspect one of the things I'll be doing tomorrow when I come back to this is tidying up the edits on these guitar parts, because even though I've just copied and pasted everything, it's really messy at the moment. And yeah, it was fun. I mean, yeah, it's good. I like how it sounds, and that's good. I think adding those guitar parts did kind of add kind of that extra element that I wanted. So yeah, I'm happy with that. So going to call it Memories Evolve. Yeah, and go with that. So yeah, we'll do it on the night. So awesome. Yeah, I'm happy with that. It wasn't a 7.5 minute prog house tune, although oddly I feel like last week that tune came a bit more naturally than this week. This week it was I feel like I got to a point and I was like, I should probably wrap this up, but I feel like it's missing something so far. But I've thought that before and then listened to it again the following day and been like, actually, that's totally fine. So I do have a habit of overthinking these things though. So anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to wrap this up here. But if you're watching on Twitch, I'll hang around for a few minutes afterwards and hang out. So yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, then I will bid you farewell, and I hope you'll join me for my next session, which I'll be doing next Thursday, and it'll be more of a Q&A than a music making session. I'll be going over all the stuff I've done over the past 4 weeks and kind of talking about things I changed after the stream and what I would change now listening back in hindsight, and how it compares to the stuff I did over the past 4 weeks before. So for everyone on Twitch, I really appreciate you joining me, and if you're watching on YouTube, I really appreciate you taking your time to watch this. Easy for me to say. Bishop's finger is fast depleting. So yes, thanks for joining me, and hope to see you next time. Cheers, and bye bye.